Hello, everyone, and welcome to DDC Tips for Beginners, Part 2. Let me just share my screen, and we'll get started. Okay, I hope everyone can see this. From my first video that I made on DDC Tips for Beginners, and I'll put a link to it in the description down below, I got a lot of positive feedback of people saying, do more. Also, I've been getting a lot of feedback about the book, very encouraging. A lot of people are picking up overall play and saying they want to get back into it. One person even told me there's an overall tournament in Rhode Island that I never knew about. So it's really exciting. I hear people, after reading my book, they're taking up MTA and they want to get into DDC. So that's why I'm making these videos. So let's jump into it. Now, you remember in Part 1 that I talked about how important it is to throw a hyzer curve shot in DDC. And I want to just dive into that a little bit more here and explain, show you two pictures of how this really works, the diagrams here. I'm going to show you the top view and then I'll show you the side view. Now, the red player over here in court A is throwing, we're going to compare a flat shot versus a hyzer shot. And I really can't emphasize enough how important it is to you improving your DDC performance by just learning how to throw this shot. This is so important. Basically, as you recall, I said before, you never want to use flat flip fly straight, which is what disc 2 is demonstrating here. Well, what's the problem if you do a flat flip fly straight is that it can be caught right on the front line by the player over here in court B. But even if you could figure out how to get it around beside that player somehow, it's still headed straight toward the back line. So you see that flat flip is disc 2, and it can land anywhere along that dashed line there, the horizontal dashed line. Whereas the hyzer curve is coming in as disc 1 here. Notice that it's parallel to the back line in court B, and so it can land anywhere along that vertical dashed line. All of those points are in. Now, the other problem with the flat flip is that it can be milked all the way to the back. So if you ever did use a flat flip as a lead shot in DDC, you're giving your opponent a lot of time to adjust where they play that. Whereas the hyzer shot is curving down into the court, and it's going to land in the court at that moment where the flight ends, with very little adjustment in the time. The opponent has to play it at or before that instant. Whereas the flat flip, coming in flat, they can just run beside it and say, I don't want to catch it yet. I'll wait until my partner throws, and then I'll catch it later. So you're giving them a lot more time to adjust. Don't use the flat flip. Again, throw it like disc 1 here with that hyzer curve. You got to learn that shot, and as I said before, in both wind directions. So you might use, righty backhand most of the time, but you also need to have a sidearm or a lefty shot. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now here's a side view of that same scenario, okay? The same two throws. We have the red player over here in court A throwing it. And notice that the flat flip, in order to make it work at all, you're going to have to argue that you could get it over the hands of that player in court B. You got to get it over his hands, or otherwise he's going to catch it on the front line, right? So let's say that you figured out how to get it over his head, but now you need to land it, drop it right into the back of the court. That's very hard to do. The Frisbee doesn't fly like that, unless, of course, it's a hyzer shot. So your flat flip is just going to go out the back. So forget about that throw. You got to learn how to do the hyzer curve like flight 1 here. Okay, now I've beaten that to death enough, so let's go on to another topic. As you also remember from my first video, I mentioned about when you have 2 people, just you and your partner, and if you don't have 4 people out to play, you can try this cycle game. This is really loads of fun. I really encourage you to try this. The way it works is you do need to go ahead and set up the court. It works best if you have a full court setup. And you play with 2 discs simultaneously. As soon as you catch one, you throw it back. So you're practicing your hyzer curve initiation shot, trying to put it into the back 1/3 of their court. And meanwhile, your partner is doing the same to you, but you're also practicing your quick throws, because as soon as you catch and throw one, you're going to run to that, you're going to have to turn around and look and run to the point where the other one is coming in. And so you're running back and forth kind of laterally across the court as your partner is throwing that other shot into you. It's a lot of fun. You can just keep going back and forth and see how long you can keep the disc going. All right, so let's move on. A new topic here. explaining again how important it is to keep the disc deep in the court is, let's talk about initiation. How can you really improve your game is, everybody understands the serve pretty well, but let's talk about initiating. You're going to have to do that after every time it's your des, after you've won the previous point, you have to initiate. Well, the first rule is take your time. You have 4 seconds. Okay, that's enough time. But don't, can't take more than that, but don't throw it right away. Don't just turn and fire as soon as you catch their serve. First of all, you want to get your balance. You have to catch their serve and then turn around and look at the other court. So you need to judge the wind and the distance. You need to pick your spot over there where you're going to aim for. And you want to give it a little time there, because you never know. Your opponent might throw first. So give them a chance in case they're thinking of doing a burn shot or something like that. Then you don't need to rush your throw. Now, what you want to do is aim for the back 1/3 of their court, but not the very back line. You don't want to throw it out, obviously. So give yourself a little buffer there. Come in about 2 meters from the back line and say that's your target area. Is you want to be past halfway, but within 2 meters of the back line on their side. Now, the next thing you want to do is, in some situations, you can aim to cross the catcher, to make the catcher of your disc, the initiation shot that you're throwing. You can try to have him cross in front of the person on their team who's holding the disc, the person over there who caught the serve. You're throwing your disc as the initiation shot. They're holding your serve already, and now one of them is going to have to run to the back to catch your initiation shot. Let's take a look at this. Now, as I said, this doesn't come up every time, but look at the player in court B who's holding disc 1. He caught the serve, and now you're the red player over here in court A initiating with disc 2. It turns out that that place, that spot on the court where the player is holding disc 1, it's the perfect spot, because he's just past halfway. So you got your serve into the back half. That's good. And you left a little bit of room on the sidelines. You didn't put him all the way over on the sideline where it's too, possibly going to throw it out. And you didn't put him too close to the back line, so there's room behind him. Now, what all that means is that grid area that I drew there with a circle is your target landing zone for your initiation shot. Now, why is that a good landing zone? Because look at the 2 blue dashed lines. The player at the front line is going to catch your initiation shot, while the player who's holding disc 1 is getting ready to throw the lead shot, because they're going to be attacking you in a second here. Well, while that player runs on the blue dash line, he has to choose one or the other to get around player 1. If he goes on the lower blue line, you see he might be coming up short. He might run around and he might not be able to catch your disc by the time it gets in the court and lands over there into the landing zone. On the other hand, if he takes the upper blue line, he's stepping right in front of his partner who's getting ready to throw the lead shot. So both of those scenarios are pretty good for you. So you want to think about trying to arrange that if you can. But let me just tell you, it is very difficult for you to get player 1 to position into that position, and very difficult for you to throw disc 2 always into that landing zone exactly like that. You have to be thinking about the wind that's adjusting your initiation shot, and you don't want to be coming in the sideline just short of that. You don't want to land it wide. You got to make sure you get that disc 2 in the court. So you have other things to worry about besides trying to hit that perfect landing zone. So you can do it if you get really good at it, but it's not your main concern. The other thing, though, that I would like you to take away from this diagram is to watch out. What if you're the team in court B? So in order to get really good at DDC, you need to communicate with your partner, and you need to start to develop a flow where you can say, look, here's what's going to happen. If this happens to us, player 1 better throw his lead shot early, or he can throw it up over the head with a 2-finger hammer lead shot over the height of the player who's running back to catch it. But if he's going to use a backhand hyzer, the problem is that might smack right into the player who's coming back to catch the initiation shot. So that's why sometimes throwing early or setting up to throw a hammer lead is a better play. But meanwhile, the player who's coming to catch disc 2 needs to know, should I run around the side or should I go in front of my partner who's holding that disc? So you have to develop that flow. Okay? So enough about that. Now, here's another kind of related question to the initiation play. Let's say that it's not your des, and you know that you want to catch their initiation shot in the front half of your court before you attack. So let's say that they keep throwing it to the back line, and you know that if you play the if you're throwing the attack shot and you're doing it from the back line, they have a lot of time to see your burn coming, and your burn is going to slow down, and they can adjust the timing on the escape, and they can probably escape if you're way on the back line. So when you're initiating, you want to put the team on the back line. Now, what if your opponent is doing that to you very well all day long? Well, then your attack shot is just going to be ineffective. You're not going to be able to double them, and they're going to escape from the play pretty much every time. So what can you do? Pretty much the only thing you can do is you can just wait. Instead of throwing the attack shot, you let your partner throw the lead shot, and you wait for them to catch the lead shot. And guess what? Now it's their des again, because you're not throwing it. That's an impasse. So you can define an impasse by waiting to throw the attack shot. In fact, you never throw the attack shot. You just wait. So they catch the lead shot, and it turns out it wasn't a lead shot after all. It was the first throw, but the second throw never came. So they look at you, and then they realize, okay, it's an impasse, I got to throw again. So they reinitiate. Now this is called cycling. Basically, you're forcing them to cycle over and over if you want. Now I've seen this happen in some competitive games where it went on 10 times. And people are going to begin to get bored. They're going to tease you. They're going to say, hey, go ahead and just play it anyway. Come on, man, what are you waiting for? Look, it's your right. You have the right to wait as long as you want. So here's the problem, though. Each time that you choose not to throw that burn, there's a couple of things that are going on that are against you. You're waiting for them to throw an initiation shot that maybe is at the halfway point. But let's say they're really good and they know what they're doing. Their back player over there keeps playing that, and he keeps curving it to the back half of your court. What's happening is that every time he's throwing that disc to the back half of your court, you and your partner are adjusting. One of you has to go up to the front line. One of you has to play the incoming initiation shot. Now he throws another initiation shot. One of you has to go up. One of you has to play. And look what's happening. Every time you're going back and forth, sooner or later, he's going to make you run into each other, like on the diagram before. So let's go back and look at that. Sooner or later, that red player over there is their back player. He keeps reinitiating with this too. He keeps throwing that over and over. Sooner or later, he's going to make you crash into your partner. He's trying every time, and he may succeed before he throws one into the front half of the court. Now, if he throws one in the front half of the court or about halfway, you got to take it. You say, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. We're going to throw the burn from here at halfway point. But if he gets a chance to crash you into each other, he'll do that. The other thing that's going on too is while you're throwing your lead shot, that and then you're not throwing the attack shot, you're holding it, he can tip your lead shot towards the front of the court. Maybe he'll tip it, and he gets one tip. He's allowed one tip. Maybe he can tip that and then burn. And why would he do that burn? Because now he's got a one-on-one situation with that burn. So if he tips up your lead shot that didn't have an attack shot, he is now looking at only your partner on the front line. And it's possible that he can adjust his burn to one side or the other and get it past your partner. Okay, now I'm getting past the beginning tips here, and we're definitely into intermediate and advanced play. So don't worry too much about this, but I'm giving you a lot of information about what can happen, and it gives you room to think about the future. Okay, so you've got two things that can go wrong here, just to recap. You've got the possibility that he's going to throw his initiation shot right on top of you and cause you two to get mixed up a little bit there. And that might force you or your partner to throw your lead shot out because you were trying to avoid hitting each other. Or you might drop the incoming initiation shot because you were trying to avoid hitting each other. The second problem is, even if you did all that right, he might tip up your lead shot because you've got no burn coming at him as an attack shot. He's got some freedom there. He can tip that up, and now he's able to throw a burn at only one player guarding the front line because you're stuck in the back holding the other disc. You had your chance and you waited. So if he can do either of those two things, he's got an advantage. Now you have to think about all that when you're deciding whether to wait before you throw your attack shot. Generally speaking, if you can get your attack shot in, at least near mid-court, if you can throw a burn from mid-court, if you can catch his initiation shot as you're jumping towards the midpoint of the court, well, that's good enough to throw your burn from and do the attack from there. But if he literally, well, I call it tattooed you, as Danny McGinnis used to say, if he tattoos you to the back line with his initiation shot, you're not going anywhere. You just wait until he, cycle and let him come again. Okay, that's it for today. I really want to thank you all for your feedback. Keep it coming. And I want to tell you about my book here at chasingdiscgolf.weebly.com. It's a lot of great stories about the overall competition, including double disc courts, self-cut flight, accuracy, and how I traveled, hitchhiked to tournaments, and a lot of inspiration here to tell you about how I pursued Frisbee from the age of 14. Thank you very much. Have a good day.